We've all heard awesome melodic bass lines by players like Paul McCartney from the Beatles or Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And if you go back to songs from the 60s and 70s, you'll hear melodic lines all the time from a whole assortment of session bass players. For example, there's some outstanding melodic playing from Bob Glaub in The Pretender by Jackson Browne, a beautiful melodic line from Charles Larkey in So Far Away by Carole King, and an iconic melodic line from Dee Murray in Rocket Man by Elton John. But how do we develop the skills to be able to play quality melodic lines ourselves? Well, that's what I'm going to show you in this video. I'll give you 5 tips to help you to improve your melodic bass playing or just to help you to get started. And I'll also highlight a few classic bass features which have melodic lines in them. Working on melodic playing is so good for your all-round bass playing, as you need to develop control, dexterity and a deeper sense of musicianship to really craft a convincing melodic line. All the material from this lesson is available on a free PDF in standard notation and tab. Just click the link below in the description, put in your email address and I'll send it straight to your inbox. First of all, I'm going to play you some of the melodic bass line from Rocket Man by Elton John. This was originally recorded by an English bass player called Dee Murray, who I feel is really underrated. He was a session player on the British scene and he also toured a lot with Elton John. I'm not going to teach you this bass line note for note as it's on the PDF. I just wanted to kind of talk about the sound of it and how it's constructed. Dee Murray played this bass line with a really sensitive touch with a range of dynamics, so you can hear that he's not really plucking the strings hard. If you haven't heard this song, definitely go and listen to the original Rocket Man, and so then you'll know what I'm talking about. He produced a very rounded attack on the note with a kind of mellow tone. Okay, if you attack that really hard, okay, it's louder obviously, but you'll get more kind of noise and it won't be as nice and rounded. Okay, I know some players play right near the neck or even over the top part of the neck here. Okay, you can get that really mellow sound there. Okay, so that's something you might want to try. Dee Murray is playing really high up on the fretboard, up the dusty end as it's sometimes called. So it really suits a melodic line to be played higher and it really cuts through the mix with a band. We've got lots of root fifth octave patterns. That triplet there. And a nice descending line. Okay, so Elton John's bass lines often are inversions. So they're, another name for that is a slash chord. So you're not always playing the root, you might be playing the third or the fifth of the chord. So that's how he gets these really nice descending lines in lots of his songs. Lots of this bass line is repeated later in the song an octave lower. So it's really effective. You can just get a bass line and play it high, the same bass line, and it sounds a lot more melodic straight away. If you enjoy this lesson, then don't forget to subscribe to my channel. You can do that by clicking the red subscribe button in the corner of the screen. And if you click the bell and select all, then you'll get notified as soon as I release a new bass video. I'll now give you 5 tips that will help you when you're starting to play melodic lines yourself. Tip number 1, learn your fretboard above the 12th fret. As we heard in Rocket Man, the melodic lines sound really good played up high, okay? So get to know the area from the 12th fret upwards, okay? We don't play up there as much, but it's good to know what the notes are. So remember that the on the double dots on the 12th fret, that's the same note as the open string, but an octave higher, 8 notes higher, okay? So that open G, that's the same note, but an octave higher, okay? And then once we get to the dots, they're the same as down here, okay? So we do it on the E string. So we've got E there, and that's E. Okay. First dot is G, same one as down here, G. Okay. So it's the same thing above the 12th fret. So if you don't play up above the 12th fret, just have a look at some of the notes there and start. You can play some bass lines, some simple bass lines that are normally played quite near the bottom of the bass. You can play them up here. Tip number 2, play with a lightness of touch. Think about how light or soft you're plucking the strings when you're playing a melodic line, and try and put some dynamics in there that will help your line to be more musical, and you can phrase it better that way. Think about how a singer does that. They don't just sing at one volume, or the good ones don't anyway. Okay, so just think about how you're striking a note, how you're plucking it. Get a nice soft note, okay? Okay, and remember that I said before, you can play it over the neck as well. Okay. Tip number 3, eradicate extra fret noise. If you listen to Dee Murray's melodic line on Rocket Man, you'll hear that there aren't any extra fret noises there. The notes are quite pure, okay? Now this isn't always the case for all melodic lines, but it's very good to be able to play a melodic line without extra fret noise. This is partly to do with your right hand, your plucking hand, how you pluck the notes, how you mute the notes, and also with your fretting hand as well. I had some mentoring a while back by a really fantastic bass player called Mike Mondozzi. So he told me that when you're playing up high, try not to sound like a bass. So what he meant by that is try and cut some of these noises that you have from the fretboard out of it. Try and make these really pure notes. Now that's quite tricky first of all, but it's a skill that you can acquire. When you're doing this, it does improve your all-round playing as well. You have to fret more cleanly, you have to think about how you're plucking, and you have to think about how you're muting. I'm now going to give you an exercise that you can play up above the 12th fret that's going to help you to work on the 3 tips that I've given you so far. I'll play it for you first. So these are based on arpeggios, okay? So the first one. Okay, so you're starting on the 12th fret of the A string. Okay, that's a major 7th arpeggio, root, major 3rd, 5th, major 7th, and then dropping down. Okay. So practice that bar first, and then we've got that's loosely based on a B minor 7, E7, back to A, okay? The third bar is exactly the same as the first bar, which is, and we've got this last bar. Okay, so you can just stay in one position, and the idea here is to play that as cleanly as possible with as minimal kind of fret noise and as pure notes as possible. So work out the exercise slowly. Once you can play that, you can always take it up a fret and keep taking it up a fret. Etc. Okay, and just keep moving up the bass. I'm now going to give you tips 4 and 5. These are more about construction of melodic lines and what you can do to try and create your own melodic line. Tip number 4, use the melody or rhythm from the vocal line. If you want to construct your own melodic line, then listen to the vocal line. Okay, you can use little bits of the tune, or you can use some of the rhythm. John Giblin, a British bass player, he often played fretless, and he played a lot with John Martin. He played on the Grace and Danger album. He used to play melodic lines that were taken from the vocal line a lot. If you listen to Hurt in Your Heart from the Grace and Danger album, then you'll hear exactly what I mean. This is a really effective technique to use, as bass sounds great behind a vocal line, especially when you're playing up high. So you don't necessarily have to play the same melody, you can try and harmonise it. Play a 3rd or a 5th lower or higher. Tip number 5, fill the gaps you find in the vocal line. You'll often hear players like Paul McCartney weaving in and out of the vocal line and filling in the gaps between the vocals. Check out the tune Something by the Beatles and you'll hear exactly what I mean. But one thing, you don't want to overcrowd the vocal line, so just be a little bit picky of where you're going to put in the lines, and there might be someone else in the band, like the sax player as well, doing this, so make sure you don't overcrowd the band. Let's look now at a few bars of the bass line from So Far Away by Carole King. This is where the bass first comes in. Okay, you can see the line kind of travels from right up here down to here. Okay, again, if you listen to the original, you can hear these notes are really pure and nicely rounded, like the bass feature from Rocket Man. So the bass is quite sparse here. It's kind of just like a normal bass line, but up the octave really. Long notes. Okay, then this moves with the vocal line and the chord. And after that is a nice little run. Okay. So that's really nice there. It really spices things up. So definitely check out So Far Away by Carole King. Really fantastic bass line. What I suggest you do now is practice that exercise. It's on the PDF, remember, as well. And then try some of these bass features. Really use the first 3 tips when you're playing that exercise. Listen to the sound that you're making, maybe even record yourself just to check afterwards. And then if you want to start constructing your bass lines, use tips 4 and 5 and just have a go. You know, you can make up your own bass line to a tune that you already know and try and play some of the vocal line, for example. You don't have to play a whole melodic bass line. You can just use the same principles to play little licks and riffs. I'd love to hear what you thought of this lesson. Let me know by leaving a comment below. And also, if you've got a favourite kind of more melodic bass player, let me know in the comments as well. I'd love to kind of read and hear about those. You can really help me out by liking and sharing this video. And also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel here on YouTube. You can do that by pressing the red subscribe button in the corner of the screen. If you felt that you got value out of this lesson, you can always buy me a coffee. They're $5. The details are at the bottom of the screen here, or you can click the link below in the description. And go and check out my website, gbshed.com. I've got bass courses on there. I've got books, t-shirts, and loads more free bass resources. So that's gbshed.com. This is Greg from Greg's Bass Shed. Hopefully see you very soon in the next lesson.